Bezos Hashem.
Yeah.
Masechta Bava Kamma. Masechta Bava Kamma, Daf Nun Vav. And we are holding on the bottom in Hayam Beis, Shol Rab Chanina ben Ogel es Rab Chiya bar Abba. It's a little Agada to Gemara until we begin the next parak. Shol Rab Chanina bar Abba es Rab Chiya bar Abba. Rab Chanina ben Ogel asked Rab Chiya bar Abba, B'bnei ma dibris v'shoynis loy nemra b'hem toiv. Why is it that in the first Saras Dibris in Parshas Yisroi it says Kabed es avicho v'simecha leman yerichin yemecha? Yeah, but Steitnis leman yitavlach. Uve Dibris achroinis, when it comes to the second, when it comes to the Dibris achroinis, there it says leman yitavlach. That's what the Gemara is going to say over here. Hold on, let me make it big. Okay, Nema behem toiv in the Dibros Achronis in Parshas Eschanan, it says leman yitavlach. So why is it that there's a change over there? Umaloi. So he answered, Acha ata shalenu loma nema behem toiv. You're asking me why it says git, why it says toiv by Parshas Eschanan. Shaleni im nemar behem toiv. Look at this. He says, ask me if it says toiv in Parshas Yisroi. Maybe it does say toiv in Parshas Yisroi, im lav. I don't know. In other words, it could be that although it says leman yitavloch in Parshas V'eschanan, it also would have said in leman yitavloch in Parshas Yisroi, but the Torah doesn't write it. Sometimes the Torah, when it repeats something, it's more expands on something that it just gave you. It gave you, the highlights in the previous parsha. So could be that the Torah was meant to write in Parshas Yisroi, leman yitavlach. So he wasn't sure to answer this question. In other words, his opinion was maybe it says leman yitavlach in Parshas Yisroi, and it also says leman yitavlach in Parshas V'eschanan. Very strange, but that's what he answered. She'eni yadeya. Im lav. I don't know if it says it or not. Klach Eitzel Rab Chanina Tanchem ben Chaniloi. Go to Rab Tanchem ben Chaniloi. Shohoya Rogel Eitzel Rab Yeshua ben Levi. He was always around Rab Yeshua ben Levi. Shohoya Boki ba'agada. He knows how to answer these types of questions, agadata questions. The question again begins in Parshas, if it's true. Yeah, he wasn't sure if it's a good question, but if it's a good question, why is it by the Dibros Rishonis when Moshe Rabbeinu when Hashem gave the luchais, the first luchais, it says Kabed es avicha v'simecha and sheshtaitnish leman yitavlach. All it says is leman yerichin yemecha, and in the Dibros Achronis shtait leman yitavlach. Okay, so that's the question. Ozil legabe. So he went to Rabbi Tanchem ben Chaniloi. Also legabe. Amalei. So he said, Rabbi Tanchem ben Eloi said, Mimeni loy shemati. I didn't hear it. Ella kach amali. I heard an answer to your question. Shmuel bar Nachem achi imoi shel Rab Acha bar Rabbi Chanina. Shmuel bar Nachem, who's Shmuel bar Nachem? He is the brother of the mother, so it's his uncle of Rab Acha bar Rab Chanina. Va'amila, and others says, Avi imoy sharab achai Rab Chanina. It is the maternal grandfather of Rab Acha Rab Chanina. Anyway, he has the answer. Okay, so this Shmuel Banachem, and he answered like this: the reason why Hashem did not write leman yitavlach in the first Aseres HaDibros, hoyel v'soifen lehish taber. Hashem knew that he's going to break he's going to break the first luchais. So therefore, if Hashem breaks the first luchais, it's never going to be the manyitavlach for the Yidden. It's never going to be good for the Yidden. So that's why Hashem, the Hashem did not write the manyitavlach in the first luchais. That's the Gemara's question. Who cares? If in the end Hashem was going to break the first luchais, why couldn't he write leman yitavlach? Rav Ashi says, Poska Toiva mi Yisrael, that it would have never, no good things would have ever happened to the Jewish nation. So that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu knowing the future that the Yidden are going to do a chet with the Egel, and knowing that he's going to break the first luchas, that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to break the first luchas. So when Hashem said Kabedes Avicha Vesimecha, he did not say Laman Yitavlach. But in the second luchas in Parshas Yisrael, in Parshas Veschanan, then when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second luchas, there in the second luchas it says Kabedes Avicha Vesimecha, Laman Yitavlach, Laman Yarach Yomim. So that was now that we're talking about the conversation that we're talking about is good things, right? So Rabbi Yeshua said, Haroya tes b'chaloimoy, a guy who sees the letter tes in his dream. And these type, not every time you dream you see the letter tes, but it's probably a certain type of deep sleep that's indicative of a connection with the divine. So if you see the letter tes, simin yofaloi, you should know it's a good thing going to happen to you. My timer. So why is the letter tes? If you see the letter tes, that's good in a dream. Because it says the word toiv, the word toiv starts with the letter tes. Is that a good enough reason? Ema, maybe the letter tes is referring to a bad pasuk. V'teitisia mimatate hashmed. Hashem's going to sweep them away, and totally destroy them. So we see that the letter tes also has an association of something that's not good. So why is it that the letter tes, if you see it in a dream, it's considered a good sign? And says the Gemara, Chad tes ko'amrina. If you see the one letter tes, then it's a good sign. If you see two tesses, then it's a bad sign, because then it's referring to the pasuk of a teitisia. Says the Gemara, Ema tumasa bishuleha. Maybe if you see one letter tes, you tell me every pasuk with the letter tes is good. Here I have a pasuk that says tumasa bishuleha. Its sin is in its pockets. It's a pasuk in Eicha. Again, a bad pasuk with the letter tes. So how do you know tes is a good sign? Answers the Gemara, tes beis ko'amrina. Okay, the Gemara changes it. If you see the letter tes along with the letter beis, so then you're basically saying you're seeing toiv in your dream, so that is a good sign. So the Gemara asked, what do you mean tes beis is a good sign to see in a dream? Ema tavu va'aretz she'areha. Maybe the pasuk means to say, maybe if you're seeing tes beis in your dream, you're seeing the following pasuk. Tavu ba'aretz she'areha, the gates sunk in the ground. So tavu is tes beis. Maybe that's indicative of a bad dream if you see the letter tes and the letter beis in your dream. Ella says the Gemara like this, and this is good to remember this. The first time the letter tes appears in the Torah, it's the first time it's referring to something good. It says the word toiv. Elahoyel of a pasuk by tes, the toiva a pasuk by akasav. The Chumash starts off the first time it says the letter tes, it was the techila, it was good. The first time it's referring to something good. Shemi bereshis ad vayara lakim es or. From the beginning of Bereshis, Tural Vayar as a Kim as R, Loy Kisiv Tes. It doesn't say the word Tes. So if you're going to see Tes, Tes is always a good letter to see in your dream. Says the Gemara another thing. V'Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Horoya Hesped B'chaloin. A person sees a Hesped in his dream. And we're going to learn, not that you're at a Hesped, a eulogy, but you see the letter Hesped. Hey, Samach, Pei, Dalet. If you see those letters in your dream, it means like this. Hey and Ches can interchange. So what it means is like this. Chasu olav min hashamayim. If you see that in your dream, that means they took pity on you in Shemayim, and they said, what, chasu means that when you don't want to destroy something good, that called chisayin. Ufeda'uhu, and they redeemed it. So they redeemed it. So they redeemed it. So that's what it means. Yeah. My wife is calling me. Okay. Chasu olav min hashamayim. So that's what it means. Says the Gemara. Ufadua. Harimili kichsava. Bichsava means you see it as it's written. Okay? If you see it as it's written, not that you see a hesped, but you see the word hesped in your dream, that's a good sign that you something not so good was going to happen. And Min Shemayim, they took pity on you. Now the Gemara is going back on the Mishnah. That means you're not allowed to crossbreed two birds together, two birds from different species, two wild animals from different species. Even though the Torah says behemtecha loisarbia kalayim, the Torah only says animals you're not allowed to crossbreed. The Mishnah says it applies to two birds. Now the question is, how do you know which two birds are from different species? Right? You can watch National Geographic and you not know it. Amar Shlakish Rav Shlukash taught us. Kan Shana Rebbe taught us. Tarnagol, a chicken. Tan of tavos, a peacock. Upasyoini, a regular cock. These are different types of birds. They look similar to each other. Not so similar. I guess they're not so similar. Kalayim zebazat. You're not allowed to crossbreed these birds. Says the Gemara Pshita. Of course, they look different. Amar Rav Chaviva explains, because they seem to habitat together. You watch the nature videos, you'll see that these type of birds stay together and raise their families together. Mao the same, I would have thought min chadhu, that's considered to be one species, and you're allowed to crossbreed these types of birds, tarnagol, tavas, or pasyoni with each other. Kamash Malan, it's not true. Don't be confused by birds just being together in the same habitat doesn't mean that they're from the same species. Amar Shmuel taught us something. Avos, a geese, the avos habar, and the wild geese, kalayim zebazah. They're kalayim, even though they both have the same name, geese, but one's a wild geese and one's a regular goose. So therefore, you're not allowed to crossbreed. Maskiv lo Rav Bar Chanan. Rav Bar Chanan asked the question, my time, what's the reason? What makes them two different species? One has a long beak and one has a short beak. Is that the determination of what makes two species? You can't look at the way the shapes are. I guess if you look at an African elephant and a South American elephant, they look actually very different. So, and the Gemara says, but they're still considered one species. If you're going to say that, Gamla Parsa, the Gamla Taya, you have the Persian camel and the Arabian camel, the high Alam Koye. One has a thick neck, the high Katan Koye, and one has a thin neck. Are you going to consider them two different species? Of course not. The fact that I don't know what the Gemara means, but it's evolution. Where the location of that bird is, it causes it to have a different look, but it's still considered the same species. So what makes these the geese from the wild goose and the regular goose two different species? Elamar Baya says like this: Zeh beitzav mibechutz, zeh beitzav mibifnim. If you look at the males, one has its testicles on the outside of its body, and one has its testicles on the inside of its body. So that is not an adaptation of evolution, but that's probably a sign that they're two different species. That's what makes it two different species. Rapapa says, ha tu'una chadar be'asa b'shichala, v'ha tu'una kamma be'asa b'shichala. Rapapa explained that if you look at the females, one of them carries one egg in its ovary, and the other carries many eggs in its ovaries. The fact that, again, that's not an evolutionary difference. That's just an indication that these two birds are considered to be two different species. Rab Yirmiyah, Rab Yirmiyah said in the name of Rish Lakish, Hamabia shnei min bayam shebayam loika. Someone crossbreeds two species of the sea, he gets malchus. It means, let's say you take a dolphin and a shark and you crossbreed it, you get malchus. Says the Gemara. What's the reason? Amar Rav Ada bar Hava b'shmei deula asien leminehu meyabasha. We're learning minehu from yabasha. That just like there's an issa to crossbreed animals, there's an issa to crossbreed birds, the fish. Boya Rachava. Rachava asked the question. Hamanig be'iza v'shibuta. Mahu. Someone is, now here we're talking about not crossbreeding, but actually leading, let's say leading a wagon. You're not allowed to have a wagon with a donkey and a ox leading it, drawing it, and you're in the wagon. So what happens? A guy has a wagon. He ties one end to a big fish and one end to a goat. So that's what the Gemara says. So he's like, let's say, he's by the edge of the ocean. One he ties a rope to a big fish and ties a rope to a goat, and has both of them pull his wagon. Very interesting question. Hamanig be'iza vishibuta. He's leading a boat. He's leading a wagon with a goat and a big fish. Mahu. Is that something wrong with that? Me amrinem. Do we say there's nothing wrong with that? Even the iza loy nochis bayam, since the goat does not go on the sea, vishibuta loy solak layabasha, and the big fish will not go on the dry land. Loy klum of it. You didn't do an avera. Idilma hashta mia kolmanik. At the end of the day, you're taking two different species, although they have two different living environments. One's a land animal, and one's a fish. Still, they're both drawing your wagon, and that should be asa. So that's the question of the Gemara. So Maskef Ravina asked the question, why is that a question? Helmiata, based on what you're saying, if you close your hand with a wheat and a barley in your hand, and then you take the wheat and you plant it in Eretz Yisrael, and then an inch away in Chutz La'aretz, you put the barley in Chutz La'aretz. Hachinami de mechayev. Are you going to say that you're chayev? So they're in two different environments. One's in Eretz Yisrael, and one's in the wheat. Let's say is in Eretz Yisrael. The barley's in Chutz La'aretz. There's no kalayim that way because the Isra of planting kalayim is only in Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says no, that you can't. Your example is not a good example. Hachi hashta. How can you compare? Hasam Eretz Makom Chiyuva. The Eretz Yisrael is a place of chiyuv. Chutz La'aretz loy makom chiyuva. Chutz La'aretz is not a place where you're chayiv of kalayim. So therefore, it's like one is in one. If you put the wheat in Eretz Yisrael and the barley in Chutz La'aretz, that's not considered kalayim. Hachi ida ve'ida chiyuvi. In both areas, you're not allowed to lead an animal. You're not allowed to have two different species draw your wagon. For example, on dry land, you can't have a donkey and an ox lead your wagon. Correct? In a boat, let's say you're in a boat, you can't have a dolphin and a shark pull your boat because that's also the Avera. So therefore, if you're going to have a dolphin and a goat pull your wagon, maybe there's a problem with that. So that was the question of Rachva, and the Gemara left that unanswered. We just finished the parak of Shar Shanagach Hasapara. Let us begin the next Mishnah. Mishnah begins, HaKoinis Soin Ladir. Someone brings the sixth parak, brings a sheep he brings a sheep to a pen, and closed the door appropriately. Right? He put up a pen, he closed the door, and this door in a normal weather can withstand the Yotzavizik, and somehow, let's say a hurricane came and it blew the door down, and the animal went out and did damage. Potter, you potter from pain. Loino, but if you didn't put up a proper door, the Yotzavizik, and then it went out and did damage, chayev, you're obligated to pay. Let's say it got breached at night and you didn't know about it to repair it, or vandals just breached the pen, the Yatzavizika, and it went out and did damage, potter, you're not obligated to pay because it's not your fault. If robbers came and broke into your pen and brought the animals out, right? Listen, chayavim, the ones that broke the pen, they're obligated to pay any damages. But if you leave an animal in the hot sun, right? So now the animal's in pain, so it's going to break out of this pen because it's in great pain. Or you put the responsibility to watch this animal into a chereshoyte v'katan, and it went out and did damage. Chayev, you're obligated to pay. Masrua l'roya. If you give if you give the animal over to a shepherd, nichnas araya tachlav, then the shepherd takes over all the responsibility of the damage. Naflinagina. Let's say an animal fell. It fell from a high elevation onto a field, vinehenes, and it broke its fall because it fell on, let's say, tomatoes. Now, really, it could have fell on feathers, right? It didn't have to fall on tomatoes. Mishalemes mashnehenes. It doesn't have to pay for the value of the tomatoes, but it could pay what it benefited that it was able to soften its fall because of the tomatoes. So you don't have to pay the full value of the tomatoes. Yarda kadaka vizika, but let's say it went down to the tomato patch and it actually ate the tomatoes, mishalemes masha zik, and then it pays exactly what it did damage. So it pays for the tomatoes, but not the price of tomatoes in Whole Foods. Kates and mishalemes masha zika. How do you pay the value of what it did damage? So you pay the wholesale price. Shaman beisah by sasada. You estimate a beisah, how much a besa of tomatoes in that field goes for. Kamma yafa, how much was it? How much was it worth? The kamma yafa, and how much is it worth less? Because let's say it's missing one row of tomatoes because of the eating and the damage that this animal did. Rab Shimon says, "Ochla peres gemura." Rab Shimon says like this. No, Rab Shimon says you don't give the mazik a break. If ochla peres gemurim, if it ate fruits that were really ripened, Mishalamis Paris Gamurim. It pays the value of ripened fruits, how much it's sold in the stores. Imsa. You don't get away with paying the wholesale price of the fruits. It depends. If it was already ready to be cut off, ready to be harvested, and the animal ate those fruits, you would have to pay the full value of those fruits. Tana Rabbana. Rabbis taught Ezu Karoi. What's called the Ezu Shloi Karo? What's called locking the pen appropriately, and what's called not locking it appropriately. So the Bryce explains, if you have a door there that could stand with normal wind currents, that is considered a closing, a proper shmira. But if it can't stand with a normal wind, let's say you close the door with a cardboard, that's considered that you're not properly watching the animal. So we see that you don't need to put up a hurricane-proof door. You can have a normal door that you buy in Home Depot to close the pen, and that's good enough. Who's the author of the Tana that says a muad? A muad means any animal that if it damages, it pays 100%. And every animal of Shein and Regel is considered a muad. And by a muad, it's enough to do a shmira pachusa. You only need to do a we'll call that a less of a shmira. You don't have to do a full-blown shmira. Who's the author that says you can get away with that? So the author of our Mishnah was Rabbi Yehuda. Now we learned in the Mishnah, Kashari ala bala b'masera, v'nal b'lafon of kiroi, v'yotzav izik, echad tam v'echad muad, chayev divrei meir. Rameir holds whether the animal's a tam or a muad. If you just put if you do just a normal shmira, Rameir says you're obligated to pay. Unless you do a bulletproof super shmira, you're going to be held liable. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Suyu says tam chayev. If it's a tam, you chayev to pay. Muad potter, but of muad, if you did a little bit of a shmira, that's okay, because once the animal is a muad, people know to stay clear from that animal. So we don't fault the owner of the animal so much. As long as the Torah holds the owner of the animal that gores liable only if you didn't watch it. But if you put up a mini watch, then if you put up a mini watch, that's good enough. Rabbi Lezer says, "Ein lo shmira ela sakin." The only way to watch an animal that's already a muad is a knife. So what the Gemara got through saying right now is the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, because our Mishnah says that for a shein v'regel, all you have to do is called a shmira pechusa, a small watching, and a minimal watching. You don't have to make a super, bulletproof watch. That's good enough. Even a small watch is good enough. So our Mishnah must be going according to Rabbi Yehuda, because Rav Meir says for a muad you have to make a super watch. You have to make up a door, put a door that can withstand hurricane forces. So the Gemara says, not so. Afila Tamer Rameh. You could say our Mishnah goes according to Rameh. Shan or Shen V'regel. Shen V'regel is different. The Torah miyata b'shmirasam. That the Torah said you don't have to do such an unbelievable shmira. The Torah limited what your shmira responsibility is. Amar Rab Lazar says, "V'amar lama masnita tana." Abar devarim haTorah mi'atam b'shmirasam. There are four things that the Torah limited what you're supposed to watch. The Elohein bar ve'esh shein v'regel. Let's see. Bar. If a man digs a pit, what are you supposed to do to protect yourself from liability? The pasuk says, the hiftach ish bar oikichre ish bar v'lo yichasera haki sahu potter. If you did a minimal covering, that's good enough. As long as you don't, the Torah says once you build the bar, you don't have to you don't have to fill up the bar. You don't have to, like, say, put a manhole cover that's rock solid. As long as you covered it, that's fine enough. So we see the Torah doesn't require you to do unbelievable shmiras by once you created a bar. Aish, how do you know what the Torah requires you to aish? The Ksiv, the pasuk says, Shalem Yishalem Hamabe Sabera. Those that kindled the fire have to pay. Ad the Ave Ke'ein Mavra, until you really were negligent, that the fire would have gone with the Ruach Mitsuya. You light a fire in your backyard, and a normal wind would have come and blown the fire into your neighbor's backyard, you're held liable. But if a normal wind would not have blown this fire to your neighbor's backyard, but a hurricane wind came, then you're not held liable, because that's not like you kindled it. So Shane, the Ksiv, the Torah, how do you know, Shane, that you don't have to overprotect your animal? The Ksiv, the pasuk says, "Ovir b'steyacha." The oven lake ain't beer until you actually feed the animal. Regel, the Ksiv shilach, ad the oven came shilach, until you actually force the animal to trespass. But as long as so the Torah is basically saying that by Shane v'regel, you don't have to now bulletproof your animal, go overboard. Even if you do a minimal shmira, that under normal circumstances the animal would not damage, you're not held liable. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, v'shilach zeha regel. V'shilach is regel. The Chaynu Omer, and the pasuk says, v'shalche regel shar v'hachamar. V'shalche regel shar v'hachamar. The ubir, and when the pasuk says ubir, zehu hashain. That's referring to Shane. So the Gemara says, how do you know that's what that pasuk is referring to? Time at the cost of the Ave Kein V'Shilach Ubir. Oh, so we're saying, as long as you did Kein Shilach Ubir, then you're not held liable. Loy of it, but if you didn't do that, lo, then you're not. Then you are held liable. So again, by Shein V'Regel, you don't have to go overboard on your shmira. So back to our point, and then we'll end. Our point is that as long as you did a little bit of a shmira, that the pen door can last in a under normal weather conditions, that's considered to be as if you did a good shmira, and therefore our Mishnah could come out according to Rab Meir, who said that although by muad, by an animal who does goring, you have to do an unbelievable shmira. By Shem Regel, you don't have to do an unbelievable shmira. And let's finish off with one second. Amar Rabba said, Masnisa Nami Deka, our Mishnah is exactly precise. The Ktani Tzayin. Our Mishnah starts off that is dealing with sheep. Now, if you notice, the whole Masechta deals with oxen. Michte, B'Sharko Askinim. Our Mishnah, all our Mishnayos and Baba Kamma deal with ox. This Nishnor, Ma'ashnor the Ktani Tzayin. Why does a Mishnah talk about sheep? La Mishum da Torah Miata Mishum. The Torah limited your Shmira. La Mishum the Khan, Karen like Sibar. We're not talking about Karen anymore. Our Mishnah is discussing Shem V'Regel. Shem V'Regel, Hiudik Sibai, the Kamash Malon, the Shem V'Regel, the Muadinheim, Shmamina. So what the Gemara is basically saying, that because Shein, a sheep, does not do Karen, it only does Shein V'Regel, therefore you can get away with a limited Shmira, which the Torah says, a limited Shmira is only required by Shein V'Regel. But by Karen, according to Rab Meir, which are our source Mishnah is Rameir, you will require a superior Shemira. Okay, we'll stop right over here.
Yeah.